Uzumaki failed, and it's not because of the visuals. I know that it's the apparent reason for its downfall, however, I don't believe this is the real reason this anime failed. In fact, I believe this anime was doomed from the start. All because the lead creators overlooked the most basic factor when creating horror. The first episode of Uzumaki made me believe we were about to witness history in the making. It had amazingly detailed animation that made you feel as Junji Ito himself had done it. Then the atmosphere beautifully encapsulated the world of Kurozochu. The well-refined tone of this movie reminded me of one of my favorite psychological horror movies, Lighthouse. However, what truly brought this anime to life is something that I haven't seen in any other horror anime, which was the pacing. This is a very underrated element that is one of the most important parts of storytelling, which is indefinitely more true when it comes to horror. The careful construction of pacing is what brings jump scares, revelations, or atmosphere to life. For instance, without good pacing, badly timed jump scares won't make anybody flinch. A poorly composed revelation won't create an eye-opener, and a bland atmosphere won't create immersion. Unfortunately for us, the viewers, and Uzumaki, the first episode is the only one that carried this aura of mystery and dread, since the rest of the episodes completely lost its focus and speed ran through the content of Uzumaki. An example of this is one of my favorite stories from Uzumaki that involves Mitsuri, a boy obsessed with jumping out and scaring people. His character in the manga stuck with me because, unlike the anime, his manga counterpart was unnerving. In the manga, Kiri witnesses Mitsuri get run over and die from having his body ragged between the wheels of a car. This mentally shook her, and she began to hear Mitsuri's voice call out to her late at night. While it could be assumed that she just had PTSD, the voices didn't stop, which drove Kiri crazy and made her take action. Wanting to find out the truth of the source calling out to her, alongside Suichi, Kiri heads over to the graveyard where Mitsuri is buried. Her plan is to dig out Mitsuri's body and find out whether he's truly dead. However, upon digging out his corpse, a decomposing Mitsuri lunges at her and Suichi, chasing them down with freakishly tall, unhuman leaps. He pushes them down with each jump, causing Mitsuri's stitches to come apart. Slowly, his intestines and limbs begin to detach. Then, when he's just about to land on Kiri, his mangled body crosses past her and he completely crashes lifeless on the floor. And out of Mitsuri's body comes out a spring that had probably belonged to the car that struck him. Whether or not this is the reason he returned as an angry, vengeful spirit is a mystery. But his demonic return as a Jack-in-the-Box toy himself was very true to his character, as that was the very last gift he gave Kiri before his death. Disappointingly, this chilling story was reduced to a short cameo in the anime. While I understand that they can't fit everything into the anime, it's stories like this that build the cursed town of Uzumaki. Now, I know many of you guys will be arguing that if Uzumaki had a bigger budget, they would have made more episodes, and that would have made the show the way they intended to. While that is a possibility, let's take a minute to see this from a different perspective. In my opinion, it was a mistake trying to adapt the hardest series in the Junji Ito catalog, not because of the contents and the drawings, but rather the pacing. This series isn't long enough to have it greenlit as a full series, but also not short enough to be a movie. You see, Uzumaki is pretty much a long story with several individual one-off events that come back to back with the main plot. While this works for the manga, it does not translate optimally for an anime. The reason being is because the anime would have needed to add original content and dialogue to keep the story from feeling rushed. Without the additional scenes, this anime would have lacked any sort of tension and horror that is found in the manga. The creator trying to make one of the most difficult pieces of media alongside one of the most complex titles of Junji Ito's work was reckless. I think the creators should have focused on making a high quality adaptation of Junji Ito's short stories, because the ones out there right now, I hate to say, but aren't very good. This would have been the optimal route for 4 reasons. The first is, short stories do not require as much screen time and detail to bring to life. Second, The experience the directors would have gained would have made them understand the magnitude a project like Uzumaki would take. The third reason is speculation, but I presume the popularity gained from the short story series would have convinced the higher-ups that adapting Junji Ito's larger pieces is worth it. The last reason is, even if the studio had received budget cuts, we the audience would have received 2 to 4 well-produced episodes instead of one underwhelming rush series. Overall, I'm beyond disappointed once again that we didn't receive a well-adapted work of Junji Ito. The creators here took on way more than they could chew. Though upper management is to blame, the directors should have foresaw that this project size was going to be enormous and very challenging. To expect Western companies to be patient and see the value of a project with no successful predecessors was naive. As for upper management who cut this project down, you guys are simply fools. The amount of revenue that could have been obtained by the DVDs alone would have been a great profit, since Junji Ito's fanbase is a cash cow that rivals other popular franchises in terms of buying manga and collecting merch. You guys could have bet that people would have died to get their hands on a steel set of this series, since HBO Max is honestly not worth it for the average anime fan like myself who already unsubscribed to this service. It's sad to see that Junji Ito's work doesn't get the respect that it deserves. The fact that we have seen people butcher his work since 1998 leaves me wondering, maybe there is a curse to Junji Ito's work that it can never be recreated and adapted for the big screen.